cockle-doodle-doo, a human chess piece, and getting spanked in the booty cheeks. What do these three things have in common, you might ask? Well, that's a fantastic question. Believe it or not, all three of those are only some of the weirdest jobs in human history. But that is only the tip of the iceberg. There's some really, really messed up ones. And today, we're gonna find out what they are.
The weirdest jobs in history. Number 7. Human alarm clock. Before alarm clocks were invented, people hired knocker-ups. Individuals who tapped on windows with long sticks or even shot peas at the glass to wake their clients up.
What? There's no way. Nah, that is the most miserable job of all time. These guys must have had to wake up at 4 a.m., walk through their entire neighborhood and wake up everybody. Not only would waking up that early just be awful, and it would make me want to vomit just thinking about it, but everyone in the entire town would despise you. And I'm talking like murder level. Nobody likes to be woken up. And it's literally this dude's job to wake people up.
They walked the streets before dawn, making sure factory workers and bakers got to work on time. Some heavy sleepers needed extra effort, so the wakers kept shooting peas until they woke up. Interestingly, some of these human alarm clocks even had their own knocker-ups to wake them first.
Nah, that's like Inception. There's knocker-uppers to wake up the knocker-uppers to then go wake up the people. It's like a never-ending system because then the second knocker-upper probably has their own knocker-upper. Wow. It's an endless cycle of knocker-uppers. Also, I don't like that term because that could be used in other ways that doesn't sound like an alarm clock. See, I call them cockle-doodle-doers, like a rooster, for example. Yeah, just buy a rooster. Just get roosters to go through the town. Why are we not getting roosters here? Why are we making people do a rooster's job? What are we doing? Anyway, let's move on to the next weirdest job.
Number 6, whipping boy.
What?
Being an English or French prince had its perks. You could never be punished. But instead of getting away with bad behavior, the punishment was outsourced to a whipping boy, a kid who got beaten on the prince's behalf.
No!
The idea was that watching his friends suffer would make the prince feel guilty and start behaving.
Hey! Yeah! What? No. Nah, there's actually no chance that's real. There's no chance that's real. So if you were like in royalty, you would never be punished? Oh my god. Oh my god. That would never work. That would literally never work. In fact, that might even incentivize these royalty kids to then do bad things because they might think it's funny to watch somebody get whipped. I wouldn't think it's funny at all. I'm just picturing Adam getting whipped. Okay, maybe it's a little bit funny.
Number 5, leech collector.
A
Back
leech
when
collector?
doctors thought
What?
bloodletting could cure anything, leeches were worth their weight in gold. That's where leech collectors came in. These guys made a living by walking into swamps and letting the little bloodsuckers latch onto their legs. Once they had gathered enough passengers, they'd carefully peel them off and sell them to doctors for medical treatments.
Ain't no way.
It was like fishing, except you were the bait.
Are you out of your mind? You know what's crazy is that doctors actually thought that that would work. There were so many like practices back then that were so normal, like bloodletting. They literally would just take blood out of you and think that that would help your body recover from whatever disease or sickness you had. Same thing with trepidation. Like they would drill holes in your head if you had like headaches or something to release the tension. And there were many other like weird shenanigans going on in the medical field back then. And I wonder today, like what we're gonna look back on in 20 years and be like, why were we doing that? Why were we injecting some, like, you know what I'm saying? Why were we doing bleebly blah 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 back then? But today it seems so normal. Back then it probably seems so normal too. Just gets you thinking, man. Cause like, I don't think people back then weren't dumb. They weren't stupid. It's just all that they knew. It's all that they thought. It's what they were told. That is crazy. People were getting the blood sucked out of them for a living.
Number 4, imperial human chess piece.
What?
Imagine standing still for hours, dressed in elaborate robes, waiting for someone to move you. That was the life of a human chess piece in the Chinese emperor's games. No talking, no sitting, just standing there, hoping the emperor wouldn't take too long to make his next move. And if you got captured, well, that's when your acting skills kicked in. You had to collapse on the spot, dramatically pretend to die, and then lie there like a defeated pawn while the game carried on.
Wait, I can't lie, like, that is definitely weird, but that's kind of lit. If you're like the emperor that's telling them what to do, you have real moving people chess pieces. That seems kind of fun, actually. I don't know about the whole taking 4 hours per game. That seems pretty long. Like, let's keep the pace moving here. But that actually seems kind of fun. Like, imagine you're the king on a chessboard, you know? That was probably like back in the day though, where if you did actually talk, since it's not allowed to talk, if you're a chess piece person, that they might just kill you. Like, they were ruthless back then. And it would be like, if you do one stupid little silly mistake, you know?
Number 3, resurrectionist. Back in the 18th and 19th centuries, medical schools needed dead bodies for dissection, but there weren't enough legal ones to go around. That's when resurrectionists stepped in. People who made a living sneaking into cemeteries, digging up fresh corpses, and selling them to scientists. Some got so into the business that they skipped the whole digging part and just started making their own cadavers.
I thought that they were just called grave robbers. I don't know why they're called resurrectionists, but I'm pretty sure that's still a thing because a lot of people get buried with a lot of their treasures or their jewelry, for example. And so there's a lot of grave robbers that will dig up graves in the middle of the night and open up a coffin and just steal all of the gold or diamonds or whatever those people were buried with. This is a little bit different though because they're actually stealing the bodies to then sell to doctors. But honestly, I don't think that this is a weird job. I mean, I guess it is weird. Okay, I should rephrase. That's weird to do that. But it's to me, this is more just like unbelievably unethical. Like, what kind of moral values as a person do you have to justify stealing someone's corpse and selling it or dissecting it? Or, you know what? Like, that's insane. That's so messed up.
Number 2, professional mourner. Back in the past,
Professional mourner.
funerals weren't just about saying goodbye. They were mostly about the drama. That's why families actually hired trained professionals to cry at funerals.
Nuh-uh.
The more intense the performance, the more it emphasized the significance of the loss. These experts could wail on demand, throw themselves on the ground, and even rip their clothes for extra flair. Nothing says they'll be missed, like a bunch of strangers bawling on cue, right?
Dude, I've been to a couple funerals. It's always sad. But like, you can't outwardly cry and make a scene out of it. It's always, you know, like maybe a couple, you know, a little tear wipey. But like, if you're making a scene out of it, that's rude, I think. I feel like that would make it worse. I mean, I also do kind of get it a little bit. Like, imagine, like, I'm just picturing me, like if I died and nobody cries. Like, I'm at my funeral, I'm sitting there in my coffin, you know, one eye open, like, come on, someone shed a tear or something. Like, someone say something nice about me, please. And like, if nobody's crying or everyone's just like laughing and goofing around, I'd be like, bro, really? Really, dude? That's so messed up. So I get the idea of like wanting people to cry, I guess. But if someone's like this,
How could you?
Chill,
How could
bro,
you
chill.
take him from us?
it's not that deep, bro. Chill. Oh my God. I don't know. I feel like it would just make everyone even more uncomfortable.
Number 1, groom of the stool.
What?
Believe it or not, one of the most important jobs in the English royal court was helping the king go to the toilet. The groom of the stool didn't just assist with the process, he also wiped the king and kept track of his bathroom habits. The weirdest part? This wasn't some bottom-of-the-barrel servant job. It was actually a super prestigious position, giving the king's personal butt wiper serious political power.
There's a hierarchy of the peasants. You can be like a bottom feeder peasant, a mid feeder peasant, and then, hold on, the tippy top of the peasants. The king doopy diaper. That is like the top upper echelon of peasants in the olden days. Wow. Imagine being so arrogant that you have somebody do that. Unless like, okay, hold on. I should, like, if you're like old and you need somebody to assist you, that's one thing. But I'm thinking me, like I'm 27, admittedly, kind of old, I know. But back in the olden days, I'm pretty sure 27 was like prime king age. And I'm thinking for me, if I had somebody document all of my poops, the sizes, if they're like fruity pebbles or if they're like logs, wiping me, I'd be like, bro, I'm good. I got it. You go do it. Literally anything else. You go do, I don't care what. Like I got it. I'm a grown adult. I can poop myself. How did this ever happen? But you know what? If it's what they wanted, like it seems like whoever was the poopy wiper enjoyed their job and felt privileged to have it. So good for them, I guess. The gun.
If you ever think your job's crappy, try having to plunge into a pit of literal human doo-doo feces every single night. Way back in the day in good old England, some daring men made a career out of wading through human excrement. So-called gong farmers were tasked with draining out cesspits filled to the brim with offensive butt slop.
That is an insane way to put it. Butt slop. That's not even what I meant to pause it for, but I paused it when he said butt slop, and now I can't stop thinking about butt slop as a word for diarrhea. Wow.
The profession had existed for centuries, but it saw its height between the years of 1485 and 1603, also known as
That's
the
a long
Tudor
time.
period. Oi, I got some Tudor for you. Since this was way before the invention of the turlet, people were content with just slamming their cheeks down in a public latrine to pinch off a quick loaf. The other problem was the lack of availability.
Wait, where's the toilet paper there? And also the seats were literally right next to each other with no division walls. Did they all just hold hands and sing Kumbaya as they sneezed out of their booty cheek? Wow.
Towards the end of the 14th century, it's estimated that there was only one public bathroom per 2,000 people.
That doesn't
Plus,
math
keep in mind
very
that
well.
all of that human waste was just piling up in a literal stone-lined hole in the ground, so you were just dropping logs onto a mountain of timber. The local government, realizing that this horrid threat to public health was fermenting beneath everyone's feet, took action to allow the construction of private outhouses and latrines in residential areas as a way to disperse the smelly sewage. It didn't work all that well. So with dookie levels rising, help was needed to drain the pits. Enter the gong farmer. The term gong deriving from an Old English term meaning to go. They were also referred to as the much more mysterious and cooler sounding title of nightmen, as the only time that they were allowed to perform their duties was under the shroud of night, and that really sucked. There were no flashlights, spotlights, or illumination of any kind. You just had to hope that the moon was shining brightly to light your way through the filth.
Batman's cool and all, but these guys are doing the city's real dirty work.
The nightmen would enter these cesspits and drain the contents using buckets and shovels. Excrement was loaded into barrels and carted off to be dumped
God.
near the River Thames. Don't worry, it was used as fertilizer later. Maybe. These men would be knee-deep, waist-deep, even neck-deep in the stuff, which had its own risks, the first and foremost being asphyxiation.
Okay, if you're getting neck deep in poop, that's all new at that point. Surely there's, like, in what situation is it necessary to jump neck deep into poop?
Cesspits were often enclosed spaces with little to no ventilation, so the buildup of noxious and toxic gases
Oh my
was a very
gosh.
real threat. Although rare, a gong farmer could pass out from a lack of fresh air and drown in the waste. Another risk was poor maintenance. Cesspits were typically drained as needed, which, depending on the size of the thing, could be up to 2 years between sloppy scoops. Since these pits just sat there and rotted, it was common for stone walls to collapse in on the farmers while they harvested.
Dying in other people's feces. I mean, you literally I can't think of anything worse than that. That's not only just a horrifying way to go, but it's also insanely embarrassing. Because all your family, your friends, your loved ones, your pets, your like everybody knows that you passed away in poop. And this job just gets worse and worse.
Any scrapes or bumps would certainly get infected, which could only lead to a painful death. But these high risks were met with high reward. Since the job was less than desirable, gong farmers made quite a healthy living,
There you
about
go.
6 pence a day. Now, I'm not quite sure what that is in non-silly sounding money, but sounds pretty good. Problem is though, gong farmers perpetually reeked from their labors and were only permitted to live in certain areas of the city, with most of the public actively avoiding them and, well, treating them like crap.
I feel like they shouldn't be treated that poorly. I mean, I get you don't want to be close to them because they stink, but it is one of those things like you have to have it or else your entire city is going to burn down. So shout out to all the nightmen out there. I'm not sure how many times in all of human history that nightmen have gotten a shout out, but if any nightmen are watching from up there, shout out to you, brother. You were doing the Lord's work. Next up, we have chimney sweepers.
Now, if you're looking for a soul-crushing, body-breaking job that pays next to nothing, you're an idiot. But I could recommend that you apply for the occupation of chimney sweep. These services were all the rage in, you guessed it, England's Tudor period. But the job has existed for hundreds of years. Rapid urbanization led to the construction of a lot of buildings, and each one of them suckers needs a source of heat. Gotta keep them English toesies nice and warm during the miserable gray winter months until the arrival of the miserable gray summer months. So a lot of fireplaces and chimneys were built to meet that demand. You do know how a fireplace works, right? Make fire, fire make heat and smoke go up through chimney and blow out the top. But all of that burning of wood and coal creates lots of icky carbon-heavy flammable deposits that build up within the chimney. Big problem, cause if that's not properly cleared out, then things can just go. And there goes not only your house, but a few neighbors' houses as collateral damage.
Whoa.
Well, the higher-ups didn't like the risk of their kingdom going up in smoke at any given time, so
If anyone comments that that guy looked like me, I'm banning you from the channel immediately. That dude did not look like me, okay? Let's not even entertain that idea.
it mandated that chimneys must be swept at least 4 times a year or face heavy fines. Thus, the employment of chimney sweeps became critical. The problem, though, is that chimneys at the time weren't exactly designed for human entry and cleaning. Bugger. Most flue networks in the building were grouped together on the roof, but could have sharp turns as they angled out towards their respective fireplaces or furnaces. To make matters even worse, regulations shrunk flue sizes down to as little as 9 by 9 inches.
Oh
This made it
my.
nearly impossible for full-grown men to slip through the cracks. The solution? Children. Really young children.
Oh, that actually does ring a bell. Like whenever chimney sweepers are portrayed, I do feel like they're children for the most part. Yeah. Okay.
Adorable, wide-eyed orphans were yoinked from poor houses and taken on as apprentices called climbing boys, with opportunities to one day grow into master sweepers themselves, if they lived that long.
A master sweeper.
If it wasn't obvious, chimney sweeping was extremely dangerous, especially for the little limber lads. Boys as young as 6 years old were sent up chimneys and told to get scrubbing. The physical dangers were abundant, as several children had died from getting stuck or horribly burned from scaling the scalding bricks.
Why would they still be hot? What? Why would it still be hot? Bro, no way anyone put a 6-year-old kid in a chimney while the chimney is on, while there's a fire going. Oh, let's test Jimmy's abilities and shove him in there while the fire is hot and burning. A lot of questionable decisions that humans have made over time, and this one's up there for one of the worst. I mean, how does this ever happen, really?
These fireplaces were almost always in use, so those chimneys were hot and ready like a carry-out pizza. Now, if the cramming didn't kill you, the scrubbing would. Soot and creosote, the organic carbonaceous byproducts of burning wood and coal, are carcinogenic. So if you're trapped in a confined space just scrub-a-dub-dubbing away while sucking up hits of cancer-causing black powder all day day, things are not going to turn out well for you. But it actually wasn't your lungs that you needed to worry about. No, it was your balls.
Okay.
Scrotal squamous cell carcinoma, also known as chimney sweeps carcinoma or just straight up scrotal cancer, was a death sentence. Something I didn't mention until now was that the young children, as a way to fit easier into the narrow hot chimneys, often went commando. No shirt, no shoes, no pants.
Whose chimney are these boys? Is this like Jeffrey Epstein's chimney? What are we doing? Bro's balls are dangling as he's 50 feet up sweeping chimneys, getting ball cancer at 6 years old, while his master is burning a fire in the fireplace. Wow.
Constant exposure to soot and such led to the development of tumors on their nethers. Once developed, they were lucky if they had a few years left in them. Sure,
That's
your sack is out
awful.
of whack, but damn, that chimney's clean.
That is awful. Like, I don't even know what's worse. What do you guys think the worst one is? Obviously, there's more, but those are really bad. Next up, though, we have the Matchstick Girl. I have no idea what this could be.
You've probably heard of the Radium Girls,
Nope.
young women of the workforce that would paint luminous numbers and hands onto timepieces in the early 1900s. Well, this is similar. Towards the end of the 19th century, matchmaking was a pretty lucrative business. Not like pairing couples up, but making literal matches.
Oh.
By the late 1800s, there were about 25 matchmaking factories across Great Britain, employing over 4,000 chaps and chapettes. The process, as with most industries at the time, involved working with some nasty chemicals. The flavor of the day here was white phosphorus, an unstable compound that burned fiercely when ignited. You know, perfect for the few seconds that you would need to set something ablaze. On top of being both easily ignitable and violently reactive with oxygen, it had the triple whammy of also being extremely toxic. Of all matchmaking jobs, roughly half were involved in the direct handling of white phosphorus, with over 80% of the phosphorus fingerers being young women. These women would come to be known as matchstick girls. Day in and day out, these women were tasked with packaging the dipped matchsticks, with an entire workforce handling as many as 10 million across a 10-hour shift, meeting the demand of the 250 million matches being burned in Britain every single day. Remember that fire is what got people through the day. Need to cook? Fire. Need to keep warm? Fire. Need to see in the dark? Fire. Need to shrink your overhead? Fire. It was the biggest blessing humanity has ever discovered, and
What's crazy to me is I'm pretty sure in Europe, like, that still is how, like, the #1 way that people heat up their houses is through chimneys and fires. But here in America, cue that epic, awesome eagle sound. We just click a button on our wall and the whole house heats up. Don't ask me how that happens.
the obvious problem is that fiddling with all of those fickle phosphorus fumes physically f***ed you up. It was very common for both men and women to form phosphoric necrosis of the jaw. The condition,
What?
nicknamed Fossy jaw,
What?
developed after the long-term exposure to phosphorus fumes. Initial
Why?
symptoms included simple toothaches, which evolved into complete tooth loss, abscesses, swelling of the gums, and complete necrosis of the jaw. To put it simply, your jaw rotted off. If you did get the jaw
Oh my
rot,
God.
there was about a 1 in 5 chance that the rest of your body would be rotting not long after
Oh
from
my God.
contracting an even worse condition known as death. In 1888, over 1,400 matchstick girls, fed up with this blatant disregard for their safety, decided to strike, demanding better pay, working conditions, and abolition of unfair fines and penalties. The strike lasted for 2 weeks before demanding.
Why the jaw? Like, if it was like, oh, you know, it's carcinogenic, it causes cancer, and you get like a brain tumor, I'd be like, okay. But it just eats your jaw. It just eats your jaw away. What? Oh my God. That's awful. That's so sad.
The British House of Commons completely banned the use of toxic white phosphorus in favor of the much safer and less toxic red phosphorus, which is what we use in matches today, but not in the match head, on the striking pad. So remember to light one up for the matchstick girls.
I actually meant to say this earlier, but I am just very blessed to have the job that I do. I get to react to videos, I get to play video games, I get to record other videos with my buddies, and I just want to take a moment to thank you guys so much for supporting these videos, leaving likes, commenting, just watching, just supporting in general. Thank you guys truly from the bottom of my heart for all the support over the years. Hand to God, I would not change it for the world. This is truly my dream job, and I am forever grateful to be in this position.
If you think your job's exhausting, try hauling an entire freaking ship up a river with your bros.
That sounds
These
awesome.
are burlacs, or barge haulers. They hauled barges. Typically dirt poor peasants just looking for enough coin to eat for a week, these men were tasked with strapping on a strap and using whatever strength they had left in them to pull in ships from the Caspian Sea all the way up the Volga River in the days of the Russian Empire. Since ship traffic was near constant thanks to strong trade, burlaks were in high demand to carefully guide the vessels up the Volga. But why couldn't the ships just sail up the river, you might ask? Because the Volga flows outward towards the Caspian Sea, and there were rarely favorable winds to propel a ship up the river, lest you risk beaching your entire ship on the banks. So why not hire a bunch of exhausted and desperate poor people to do the work instead? Whoa, slow down fellas, there's no need for us to be Russian. Depending on the load size, burlak groups could range from just a few men up to 150 fellas.
Wait, there's a bunch of women here doing it. What? I don't mean to be that guy, but like, I think there's some jobs should be for men and some should be not for men. I feel like if I say for women, for some reason that then becomes offensive, but like, this feels like a man's job to do. The men shall suffer and move the ships. I'm sure that this job was awful, by the way, and I'm not saying that it wasn't that bad, but I do feel like doing this occasionally would be very fun. Like, imagine it's you and the boys, and you all have a boat, and you beach the boat, and you're like, all right, well, now we gotta push the boat back into the ocean. That sounds very fun.
Pulling a single ship. But there was a moment of respite for these workers. See, one advantage to working in the Russian Empire was the cold winters. Can't exactly move ships upstream when the waterways are completely frozen over. So burlaks were seasonal, working dawn until dusk, thaw till frost. But since the combination of being poor and not working meant certain death, the men would pick up odd jobs in the winter to barely scrape by.
Hey, I make a duck. Smudgy, smudgy.
At the beginning of the 19th century, it is estimated that about 600,000 burlaks worked in the Russian Empire, but the evolution of ship technology and the invention of the steam-powered ship rendered the job obsolete. By the end of the 19th century, the burlap profession had vanished over the horizon.
That one doesn't seem like fun either. Next up, though, I really hope that this is actually about snakes. This could definitely be misconstrued as something way more sus. But next up, we have the snake milker. I don't even know if I want to know, but we're about to find out.
Now, I know what you're thinking, so stop it. This has nothing to do with milking your own
Hey,
snake
yo!
or giving little pinches to little snake nips, which don't exist. Snakes aren't mammals. The job of a snake milker was to extract their venom from their fang.
Oh, okay, all right, my bad, my head was in the gutter. This was my head, now it's in the gutter, okay? But now I'm gonna take my head and put it back where it needs to be. It's no longer in the gutter, we're good. I understand it now.
Snake venom was highly coveted for use in early warfare as a biological weapon, granting you the ability to proc tick damage over time to your enemies if you weren't able to finish them off yourself.
I love the
Perhaps the
RuneScape
best
references.
weapons of choice to get slathered in the stuff were arrows. Lethality of arrows varied greatly. Take one in the skull? Yeah, sure, you're dead as a doornail. But take one in a less critical spot like an arm or a leg, assuming you don't sever an artery, and you might just live to see another day. But that all goes out the window if the arrow tip was dipped in some venomous drip. Quite a few civilizations have been noted for using envenomed or poisoned arrows throughout history. You've got the Khoisan people of southern Africa who have been using poisoned arrows for thousands of years in hunting large prey, and the Harmatilians who used viper venom against an invading Alexander the Great. But no army employed the use of snake venom better than the Scythians. Also duking it out against Alexander the Great, the Scythians developed their own iconic poison for warfare.
I'm pretty sure Alexander the Great dominated everybody and conquered almost half the world. So I guess these poison arrows weren't that effective, at least against Alexander the Great's army.
Combining not only viper venom, but also putrefied human blood and excrement, even minor scrapes from their weapons were lethal. So on top of dealing with being envenomed, you also dealt with the horrors of gangrene and tetanus. So with all that said and done, snake milkers. Like I said, it was their job to wrangle and wrestle up enough snakes to meet the demand of entire armies. But luckily, this wasn't a time for catch and release practices. Kill the snakes, take their venom. That's the job. Of course, that is easier said than done. By nature, snakes are shy little fellas and pretty hard to find. Chances are you get struck before you even noticed one. One catch of their fangs is enough for it to be game over. Snake milkers were considered lucky if they even managed to survive a single round of collecting.
Wait, wouldn't it be way more effective if they just kept all the snakes and then had them bite into a bucket? They do that now, that's how they extract poison now, or the venom now. That would have been way more effective. Next up we have the drummer boy. This is one of those that doesn't seem that bad based on the name, but I have a feeling this one might be the worst one yet. I'm not sure what it is about it, but it's giving me weird vibes.
Imagine getting ready to charge onto a battlefield to either invade a country or defend your own. You see your fellow soldiers gearing up for battle with their trusty firearms, and you're given a drum. I got a fife. Drummers, believe it or not, were a critical part of warfare in the days of yore. Since there were no such things as radios or more instantaneous methods of communication, drummer boys were employed and trained to maintain order on the battlefield, signaling commands, attacks, retreats, and everything in between.
That's actually pretty cool. I thought that they were only used to essentially motivate their army to continue and push. But it does make sense that they use them as well to signal their entire army what they're trying to do. That's actually genius.
Drummer boys were typically in their teenage years or young adulthood, though some more famous drummer boys were much younger. Little Charlie King of the Union Army died in battle at the age of just 13, being the youngest casualty in the Battle of Antietam. Itty-bitty Johnny Clem ran away from home and was taken in by the Union Army as a drummer boy at the ripe old age of 9. Just a few years later, the little fella fought in the Battle of Chickamauga in 1863 at the age of 12, where he shot and killed a Confederate soldier.
Wow.
What you gonna do? Shoot. He was promoted to sergeant, eventually retiring from the United States Army in 1915 as a brigadier general. But that's a rare occurrence. In reality, it would have gone more like this. Despite what people may think,
They don't give them any weapons at all? Like, why not give them like a little revolver in their back pocket that they can pull out just in case, you know? Bang! Just pop somebody real quick. Not even a sword? Like, they can hold extra things. They don't only need 2 little sticks and a drum.
instead they would relay commands from behind soldier lines, though they were still known to be valuable targets. If you break the communication line, you break down the army. Outside of combat, drummer boys had a wealth of other responsibilities, such as carrying messages between units, assisting battlefield surgeons with amputations, carting the wounded up the field, fetching supplies, or burying the dead. They very rarely carried weapons of their own, so if they had to defend themselves in the heat of battle, they were pretty shit out of luck.
Dude, just give them like I mean, maybe they didn't have pistols back then. Not even like a flintlock pistol? Nothing? A knife! Just give them a knife! Those were easily the weirdest jobs I have ever heard of. And I would never try them for myself. And to be honest, it sounds way easier to just be a criminal than do any of those jobs. But if you're gonna be a criminal, you should be a very smart one, which most criminals are not, which is pretty hilarious. So now we're checking out the dumbest criminals in history.
At 2 a.m. in Clearwater, Florida, Herbert McClellan came up with a brilliant plan to make some quick and easy money. He walked into a convenience store, waited for the cashier to get distracted, and at just the right moment,
Bink!
swiped 13
Gotcha,
scratch-off
Nick!
lottery tickets straight from the counter. With his stolen fortune in hand, he left. Once safely hidden, he eagerly scratched off the stolen tickets and discovered his big prize.
Oh my God.
A whopping $30. This wouldn't have been that ridiculous if McClellan had cashed in his winnings anywhere else.
No! Nah. I mean, I know that these are the dumbest robberies of all time, so I shouldn't be too surprised that this is going to be incredibly dumb, but really? Nah. That's like dining and dashing and going back to that same restaurant the next week. At least wear a disguise. If he's going back, put on a wig, put on some makeup, and maybe they won't recognize you, but going back to the same spot that you stole the lottery tickets from, that's a new level of low IQ.
But he drove right back to the same store
Yep.
he had just robbed. The cashier, who hadn't magically
Bruh.
forgotten about the theft just hours earlier, immediately called the cops. When they arrested him, police discovered he was also driving with a suspended license, his second offense. To top it all off, McClellan's poor decision-making cost a $12,000 bail.
I'm also now realizing that generally people who are criminals and break the law have lower IQ. And these are the dumb people of those dumb people. So this is like the ultimate S tier list of some of the dumbest people on the planet. If I somehow find myself in this video, I'm gonna have a very strongly worded email to send to somebody. I don't know who yet, but I'll find out who. Anyway, number 4.
The reverse Santa Claus. Jesse Berube had what he thought was a foolproof plan. Sneak into Lori's little shack in Citrus Heights, California, by sliding down the chimney, grab some cash, and disappear into the night. But unlike Santa, he lacked both magic and foresight. The moment he dropped in, he realized he had a serious problem. He was stuck. No amount of wiggling or twisting helped. Out of options and likely regretting his life choices, Berube did what few criminals have done before. He called 911 on himself. Firefighters arrived with specialized equipment, carefully pulling him out of the narrow chute. Despite his not-so-graceful extraction, Berube was unharmed, except for his pride.
He self-reported himself. He went to go rob a store and self-reported in real life. I'm not talking about Among Us. We're talking about in real life. This guy called the cops on himself. That's unbelievable. Also, how can he not push himself back out? Like, you jump in, you get stuck, okay, as the famous and very inspirational Miley Cyrus once said, everybody makes mistakes. But when you're in that situation, how can you not get back out? I don't understand that.
Number 3. Robbery to go. Albert Bailey wondered how to make a bank robbery more efficient, without using guns. Then it hit him. Why not call ahead? So he picked up the phone and dialed People's United Bank in Fairfield, Connecticut. His request? He wanted the bank to have the money ready for him to pick up. Specifically, he asked for the cash to be placed on the floor in $100 bills, neatly packed in bags for easy grab and go. Oh, and he'd be there in 10 minutes, as if he were ordering a pizza. The bank, however, had a different plan. Instead of stacking money, they obviously called the police.
I have a sneaky suspicion that some of these people may have been influenced in their decisions by perhaps a couple of drinks maybe a couple of puffs of certain ingredients, who knows? Something though. But I feel like there's no way, no matter how dumb you are. I mean, we're talking atom level dumb. Even he wouldn't do something like this. So there must be some other influence here that is making people do these just awful, tremendously stupendous decisions.
When Bailey and his teenage friend walked in expecting a smooth pickup, officers were already there, waiting to serve up some handcuffs. No weapons, no masks, just two guys walking straight into their own arrest. Number 2, the invisible robbers. In 1995, MacArthur Wheeler, a 44-year-old man from Pittsburgh, was dead sure that lemon juice could make him invisible to security cameras.
I did say that this will be the dumb of the dumb, but now this might be the dumb of the dumb of the dumb of the dumb. I mean, that is truly, it's almost inspirational how somebody can dream and truly believe in something that is so clearly inaccurate. As dumb as it may be, there is some aspect of inspiration there.
Why? Because lemon juice is used as invisible ink, so in his mind, it would work the same way on his face. So, Wheeler and his partner covered their entire faces in lemon juice and robbed 2 banks in broad daylight, without masks. They even smiled directly at the cameras, thinking they couldn't be seen. Of course,
obviously the list gets worse and worse, but what is number 1? I'm still really interested to see where this goes, but what could possibly be dumber than that? Oh my God!
The police immediately recognized him from the footage and arrested him the same day. When Wheeler saw the security footage, he was shocked and shouted, "But I wore the juice!" This case was so ridiculous that it caught the attention of 2 psychologists, David Dunning and Justin Kruger. This led them to study how people with very little knowledge often overestimate their intelligence.
I kind of said that. I talked about how dumb and low IQ some of these people are. People who are go and rob a bank, for example. You gotta be pretty silly. Or mad genius, one of the two, no in between. And then I said it was inspirational how they actually believe that this would work. There's like something interesting to learn from that, and these guys agree with me. What does that make me? A genius.
Facebook. Meet Nicholas
Facebook.
Wigg, a man who thought he had pulled off the perfect crime. One rainy night in 2014, he broke into James Wood's house in South St. Paul, Minnesota, stealing credit cards, cash, a watch.
Very off topic, but one of my favorite memes of all time is when Joe Biden says, Minnesota! So please just put that in right now. Minnesota! And if he ever says Minnesota again in this video, put in Joe Biden saying Minnesota. I love it so much.
He broke into James Wood's house in South St. Paul, Minnesota,
Minnesota!
stealing credit cards, cash, a watch, and other valuables. He even took a moment to settle in before slipping away unnoticed. When Wood came home, he immediately knew something was wrong. His door was unlocked, his house was a mess, and his belongings were missing. But then he noticed something unusual: wet clothes on the floor, and on his computer screen, a still open Facebook account belonging to a certain Nick. Instead of calling the police right away, Wood posted a status on Nick's own profile, announcing to the world that this man had just robbed him. He even left his own phone number, hoping for a response. And it worked, because Nicholas himself texted him. Wood offered to return his wet clothes in exchange for some of the stolen goods, and Wigg actually agreed. But instead of getting his clothes back, he got handcuffed, facing up to 10 years in prison and a $20,000 fine.
I just want to be in one of those people's brains for not even 24 hours, maybe like 2 hours, just to have an understanding of like, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? What are you actually thinking? How is that possible that you thought that was a good idea? Oh my God. But being a criminal doesn't just cost you your freedom. In fact, back in the olden days, criminals received some of the most painful punishments in all of humanity. So let's check them out. Okay, whoa, don't punish me. I don't want to be punished. Don't show me grimy fungus feet in the first 2 seconds. Sorry, I just had way too much caffeine earlier today. I gotta relax.
On this list, them suckers tortured half-truths out of people for over 350 years during the highly unexpected Spanish Inquisition between 1478 up until 1834. Now, when you're performing painful public persecutions for such a long time, you're gonna come up with pretty colorful ways to do it. Ways to inflict maximum pain to ensure that you extract those dubious confessions from those filthy non-Catholic heathens. So it's no wonder that history was blessed with devilish devices designed to do just that. You had the Spanish spider, the Spanish collar, the Spanish tickler, very different from the French variety, the Spanish donkey, and the star of this segment, the Spanish boot.
Oh my God. I feel like back in these days, Jeffrey Dahmer would be hailed as like the ultimate being. If he could teleport back into those days, he definitely would. And what is the tickler? He said he's not going to talk about the tickler because there's something worse, but I think being tickled to death would literally be the worst thing ever. I hate being tickled.
Originating somewhere during the Inquisition times, the Spanish boot was a very basic, yet very effective interrogation tool. Help. 4 planks of wood and a few bits of metal. You got your braces for holding the wooden splints and sharpened metal nails to make you squint. The legs of the victim would be secured in place between the 2 inner free-moving braces. The 2 outer planks are secured to each other, preventing any outward movement. Not that you would want to, because, you know, sharp nails and such. Once the victim was sat down, a large wooden wedge would be placed in between the inner planks, locking the victim's legs. And I'm sure your imagination is a few steps ahead here. The interrogator equips his iconic giant hammer and rears back, preparing to strike. Are you sure you don't want to confess your crimes? Because this pulsating sack of meat is about to treat you like one of them carnival tests of strength.
Gosh dang, he looks like me.
With one swift blow from the hammer, the wedge drives the inner boards outwards, lacerating your legs, shattering your shins, and crushing your calves.
Oh my god!
Pain is pure agony. And that was only the first strike. Additional slams from the mallet reduce your legs down to something resembling burger meat. Remember when you could walk like 30 seconds ago?
On this channel, we have been diving into some horror things. Every time I watch one, I regret it, and I tell myself never again. I'm not doing that ever again. And then I end up doing it again. I bring that up because I genuinely don't know if I can watch those videos. This one, though, I don't like that.
Me too. Now, despite the Iberian identity, there were many variations of the Spanish boot throughout history. The Scottish first dabbled in boot torture even before the Spanish, tightly binding victims' legs in saturated leather. The bindings would then be heated over an open fire, shrinking the leather and constricting the legs to the point of snapping bone. The French even got in on the action with their own version. The victim would be bound and gagged on a wooden chair with both feet placed in a single oversized iron boot. It would then be filled with either boiling water, boiling oil, or even molten lead. And if
that's not even torture, you're just killing him at that point. Like, what are we talking about? You stand in a giant boot and they pour lava in there. I thought torture was like a lot slower. Like, I don't know, like, oh, I'm gonna give you a paper cut if you don't tell me your Roblox password, for example. Not, I'm gonna put you in a giant boot and pour lava in there. What could even be like so encrypting back then? Like, they didn't have passwords for things. They didn't have banks with giant contraptions to break in. What could you possibly be interrogating people for back then?
If you're unaware, pure lead melts at around 622 degrees Fahrenheit or 328 degrees Celsius. For comparison, just 2 seconds of exposure to 150 degree Fahrenheit water is enough to cause third-degree burns on human skin.
My gosh.
Victims of the French boot would have their skin and their muscles boiled off of their bones or encased in a big hunk of lead. Better get to get...
I'm gonna throw up. Like, it gargles my stomach. I feel like my stomach is boiling right now. I don't know how I feel about this.
At least make up something convincing.
Abacination. Abracadabra.
Oh, this shit sucks. You ever hear the term an eye for an eye? Well, the literal form of this would be the toe-curling, face-scrunching practice of abacination. Popular amongst ancient Greeks, Persians, and within the Byzantine Empire, abacination is a form of corporal punishment, meaning that the goal isn't death, but rather to teach the victim a lesson. In this case, how not to see anymore. That's because abacination is the act of inflicting intentional or oftentimes irreversible damage to one's eyeballs.
Oh my god.
What the fuck? Your bulbous oculi have a myriad of...
I wonder, like, how normal this stuff was back then. Because the only thing, really, that we know about history is, well, history books. And what was documented back then. And maybe, back then, the only thing that was, like, well documented was their torture methods. And so, maybe we think that it used to be so normal for them to do that back then.
Nerves ready to send your brain big ouch signals the moment they detect discomfort. And boy, are they about to feel some discomfort. Although it was mainly used
Oh
as
my
a
God.
punishment for heresy or treason, the act of annihilating one's eyes existed all across human history. Perhaps one of the most popular examples of this was executed by Byzantine Emperor Basil II. After defeating the Bulgarians at the Battle of Cladion, Big Bad Basil had taken thousands of enemy soldiers hostage. He had ordered that the men be divided into groups of 100 and brought before him. It was then he had his men gouge out the eyes of 99 of the soldiers, sparing one who would be allowed to keep one eye. That lucky duck.
You guys see what I'm saying? Like, I feel like that would never happen today. There's no way. There's no way. I mean, maybe I just don't hear about it. Maybe it does happen and I'm just very oblivious and ignorant. I've never heard of, like, the US. Like, don't get me wrong. We've done our fair share of bad things, but I've never heard of us taking 100 people and gouging their eyeballs out. Like, what are we talking about? That is insane. That's absurd. Maybe in, like, some, like, Game of Thrones type movie that's happened. But if this is real, like if this actually happened, that's horrifying. That is horrifying.
Be the one to lead his now blinded comrades back to their respective commanders. Now, according to legend, this mass blinding was conducted on 15,000 men, granting Basil II the vicious title of Basil the Bulgar Slayer. But how would this blinding actually be performed? Well, it's really up to how the person doing it felt that day. Traditionally, abacination was carried out by jamming a red-hot iron rod into the ocular cavity, essentially melting the eye from the skull. Other flavors of removal included scooping with a spoon-like device, slitting with a blade, using preposterous pressure to pop them like pimples, or just leaving it up to good old chemistry. Now, if you really pissed someone off, you would be strapped to a chair while corrosive liquid, usually boiling vinegar, was placed in soluble cups and positioned over your eyes. The corrosive agents would slowly eat away at the bottom of the cups, left to drip into your eyeballs, which would painfully dissolve away. At that point, you'd be luckier to die than to survive. But couldn't they just close their eyelids? Oh, you mean these? Yeah, they cut those off too.
As I was watching this, I was thinking of other ways to shut off some of your senses, because obviously sight is one of your 6 senses, 5 senses. Anyway, I was thinking, what do you guys think of this one? You put cement in someone's nostrils and then you clog them up, so then they can't breathe out of their nose anymore, forcing them to breathe out of their mouth. I hate breathing out of my mouth. I find it, quite frankly, disgusting.
Don't worry, it was only a little painful. See what I did there? No, you didn't. That's fine.
Next up, the tiger bench.
Strap in for this one, because that's exactly what's about to go down, and your legs are about to go up.
Oh, God.
This is the tiger bench, a Chinese torture device popularly used in China from the Imperial Age up through today. That's right, the International Society for Human Rights, a German-based non-governmental non-profit organization, claims that multiple inhumane torture devices like the tiger bench are still used on prisoners in China to this day for
everything I said, bag it up, tie a knot, zip tie the knot, put a lock on the zip tie of the knot, wind it up, and throw it out the window. And never look back on it ever, because apparently some of this stuff still happens today. What are we talking about?
Acting confessions or flat-out torture just because. It's true, probably. And the same applied to its use in the Imperial Age. During the times of the Ming and Qing dynasties between the 14th and 20th centuries, the judicial system required a confession to legally convict a criminal for their crimes, since forensics at the time weren't all that great. Unless you had notable status to sway public opinion, the perpetrator would basically have to be caught red-handed by multiple witnesses. He ran into my knife.
That actually is a point that I was going to bring up earlier, is maybe torturing was way more necessary back in the day because there was way less evidence. They didn't have cameras, they didn't have audio recordings, and so in order to actually get to the truth of things, they had to be very forceful about it. I'm not saying that's right, but I am just saying that's probably a reason why torturing used to be so much bigger. Because today, for example, let's say somebody goes into a Walmart and steals something. You don't have to take a knife to his eyeball to figure out what he stole or if he stole it. You can just go to the security tapes and say, oh yeah, the big, giant, balding, red, strong, 6'4", handsome man is stealing the Oreos in aisle 5. Clear as day. He shoved it inside of his butt cheeks and walked out of the store. Whether or not that's a true story, I will not disclose. But point being, the proof is in the pudding. The proof is right there.
But what do tiger bench do, you ask in poor English? It's very simple. The victim is delicately slammed onto a wooden bench in a sitting position, their hands and ankles bound by ropes, and their mouths gagged with, I don't know, probably a piece of cloth or something. They would also have their torso and thighs secured to the bench to prevent any unwanted thrashing from the pain that they were about to experience. One by one, bricks or wooden slabs would be placed under the victim's piggies, slowly elevating them higher and higher while the rest of their body remained locked in place. Now, unless you have the Tibio Taylor talent of a turkey, you can see where this is going. With each addition of a brick, your ligaments in your knees become hyperextended.
Yeah, what are your knees snap?
Forcing your knee joint beyond its natural range of motion.
Oh!
If any of you less than limber people remember the ungodly sit and reach box from your middle school gym class, just imagine that, but someone grabbing your arms and pulling you with all of their might. Then you might just get a lick of what that pain must feel like. The continuous hyperextension eventually leads to the shattering of the kneecaps and the splintering of the leg bones, utterly destroying muscles and tendons, rendering the victim's legs completely useless. Trust me, although this guy seems untroubled, inside, he's screaming. And if that weren't enough, prisoners would be bound in this position for days on end, to the brink of starvation and full sleep deprivation from the ongoing pain. Not only from the hyperextension, but from physical beatings to the rest of their body if they continued to refuse to confess.
Like, that's not enough? You snapped his knees in half, making him completely immobilized for the rest of his life, and now you're still whipping him with the belt? Come on, tell me the secret formula! Tell me the secret formula! Seriously, like, what could have been that important back then? Oh my god. And this technique is still used today? China! Oh my god, what are we doing over there? Good lord. Sagittal sawing.
Despite with the chill demeanors on the...
How did I get here? How did every single decision I've made in my life lead me to this moment here where I'm staring at a man naked, butt cheeks out, legs spread, tied up to a pole, upside down, getting sawed in half? What decision did I make that led me here? And how do I go back in time and undo that? That's what I would do. If I could go back to one moment in time, it would be to that decision and change it. Instead of going left, I'll go right so that I don't end up looking at this man.
As faces express, getting sawn vertically in half is not a pleasant experience. Although the act of sawing has been present throughout many different cultures in history, ancient Roman and Chinese versions were mainly done transversely or at the waist. But some sadistic buttholes thought, nah, not painful enough. Let's try a different axis. And you know what? Let's hang him upside down too. We'll start shredding the sack, split the crack, go down the hull and to the skull. The method is pretty self-explanatory. A victim will be hoisted up upside down with arms and legs secured to two posts, usually with their dangly bits out.
I'm so sorry.
The condemned would then have a big ol' saw ripped through their bodies like a slice of birthday cake. On the bright side, the poor soul would most likely be long dead or at the very least unconscious before the saw ever got that far thanks to the excruciating pain and severe blood loss. Documented cases of this particular path of punishment are rare, but some stories have survived. The most known case being that of Simon the Zealot, one of the 12 apostles of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. If you've ever seen Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper, he's the less detailed guy all the way at the end of the table getting ridiculed by these two fine gents for asking, "When can we eat?" Very little is known about poor Simon at all, being only passively mentioned in the Bible. History states that he preached across Egypt and Persia, with the latter being the place of his demise. Apparently, the Persians weren't too happy with the door-to-door preachings of Simon, so much so that they saw to his end.
My God.
Literally. According to some historians, around the year 65 AD, at the age of 60, Simon was spread in two while spreading the word of the Lord. For his dedication to the J-Man, Simon was made a saint in the Catholic Church, with many depictions of him holding a long saw, similar to the one that ripped through his being. Ironically enough,
why is he known as the Saw Man now? I mean, I get it. He was Sawed in two, but that's like Steve Irwin. The GOAT, by the way. I love Steve Irwin. That'd be like making a statue of him riding a stingray. How is that not so disrespectful? And that's how this guy's known. Like, Steve Irwin is known as the crocodile guy. But that'd be like every image and statue and piece of art that was dedicated to Steve Irwin. He had like a stingray under his arm, and they were buddy old pals. No, that's what got him killed. Oh god, the ants. What even is this
Oftentimes we find that nature is already well equipped with possible torture resources, and it doesn't even have to be something large or intimidating. Sometimes it's the small things that pack the biggest punch.
Okay.
Well, turns out that quite a few groups of people around the world took advantage of nature's blessings. Like this little guy. This is a Pseudomyrmex triplerinus, but you can call it a little ouch. This agonizing arthropod is a venomous species of ant most commonly found in the northern areas of South America. These ants contain a cytotoxic venom, which if you remember my little toxins rhyme from my worst jobs in history video, you'd know that cytotoxins cause extreme cellular damage and painful swelling, making it a perfect tool for devastating torture. For this section, we actually have a very modern use case. Back in 2014, a group of Bolivian villagers in the province of Ayopaya apprehended a pair of teenagers accused of stealing several motorcycles. Since the run-of-the-mill judicial penal system wasn't deemed effective enough, the villagers took matters into their own hands.
Oh my God.
The two upstanding criminals, aged 18 and 19, were strapped to a tree infested with venomous ants for 3 days. The young men writhed in pain for hours and hours on end, sustaining bites all over their bodies from head to toe. Chests were chomped, calves were crunched, nipples were nipped, and balls were bitten. It was only after being found by one of their sisters that the young men were freed from their pincer prison. Well, also after all of their relatives coughed up about $3,700 in cash as compensation for the bikes that were stolen. Gotta pay back your debt after all. Both men were rushed to intensive care, with one requiring dialysis to survive. But I bet they learned a valuable lesson. Don't take shit that doesn't belong to you.
See, that's an awful torture method, but it's one that I can back at least more than the others, because maybe he didn't go into it yet, but it seems as though there's no permanent damage. Like the ones where you turn your legs into a meat grinder. Nope. That's a no-no for me. The one where you jump into a giant boot and they pour lava in it, that's a no-no. No, 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 no. The one where they take a flaming hot knife and stab your eyeballs out? No. And don't even get me started on the saw. This one at least seems like you can survive and continue living life afterwards. You just learn a very harsh lesson.
There have been other claims of ant torture throughout history, though, as a warning, these are more anecdotal than confirmed. It is said that the Apache people of the southern US and northern Mexico regions were capable of committing horrible acts of violence, but hey, when you're forced off your land, what are you gonna do? One such act was taking prisoners of war and burying them neck deep in the earth, allegedly near anthills containing red harvester ants.
Ooh, not
With
red
a simple
ants.
prod
Oh,
to the
God.
hill, thousands of ants pour out to defend their home. And being the nearest target, looks like you're the culprit. The red harvester ant latches onto your skin with its strong Chad-like mandibles
This hurts
and
bad.
proceeds to repeatedly stab you with its stinger. Once stung, pheromones are released, chemically signaling other ants to swarm you. Your lips, your mouth, your ears, and even your eyes are all susceptible to the stings. The intense pain from just a single sting has been described as feeling like being prodded by a searing hot needle, lasting up to 8 hours. So it goes without saying that thousands of those would really suck. But don't worry, it's well documented that around 500 stings would be enough to kill a human.
Wow.
Now, you're probably getting all itchy just thinking about them things crawling all over you, aren't you? Well, now you are.
The trials.
Our last stop on this journey takes place in the big old continent of Africa. Having dealt with colonization for centuries, the many countries of Africa are no stranger to pain. In fact, they're pretty good at dishing it out, especially to each other. Now, the concept of trial by ordeal is not exclusive to Africa. It's been seen across Europe, Persia, India, and Cambodia as well, but this segment focuses on Africa. Why? Because that's how I wrote the script and that's how I'm editing this video, so... Okay, so the idea behind the trial by ordeal is to determine the guilt or innocence of the accused through various means of torture. If you survive, you're innocent. If you die, you're guilty. Not that it mattered anymore, but there were many different ordeals to be trialed through. These are going to be a bit rapid fire, so stick with me. And speaking of which, the first one is the trial by fire. The accused would either be forced to walk along a length of hot coals, hold scalding hot metal, or retrieve items from cauldrons of boiling hot oil. If the victim showed no visible signs of injury, they would be considered innocent. But that's just setting people up for failure. These examples of trial by fire have been historically documented across Togo, Nigeria, and Sudan. Next was the self-explanatory trial by poison. The accused would drink toxic concoctions consisting of various local poisons. In Liberia and Ghana, victims enduring the trial would be forced to ingest the bark of the sassywood tree. Alright, which one of you drank all the sassywood juice? I don't want to drink that stuff. Nope. Was it you? The bark of the sassywood tree contains erythroflein, a powerful poison that can fuck up your heart. But as long as you regurgitate that slop out of your system, you're right as rain, and considered innocent. Similarly, some prisoners in Sierra Leone or Nigeria would drink a solution made from the calabar bean, which contains physostigmine, an acetylcholine esterase inhibitor. If you've never seen my chemical weapons video, this is just a fancy way of saying that it causes life-threatening seizures and a loss of your respiratory control.
It is pretty hilarious that back in the day, like I said earlier, they didn't have proof of who was guilty and who was innocent. So if there were 2 people or multiple people involved in a certain incident, they would just give all of them poison, and then whoever survived apparently was the innocent one. They just left it up to the gods to decide who was innocent and who was guilty.
One final trial would be the trial by water. Popular in pre-colonial Côte d'Ivoire, the accused would have their hands and feet bound and be tossed in the local river. Those who were able to break free of their bindings and swim to the surface were absolved of their crimes, while those who sank like stones were doomed to figuratively and literally drown in their guilt. Talk about washing away your sins.
Well, shout out to Chat History. He makes amazing videos, and as gory and creepy as this one might have been, it was still pretty cool. And if you guys enjoyed and want me to watch more videos like this, leave a like, subscribe, and click right here.